It's like a radio. You're like a radio DJ with yours. Mine's I look more like Madonna.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh yes, with the
Yeah.
goose
The
mic. Yeah, I
cones.
get
Yeah. Oh, the
it.
goose bite. Yeah. Um. Right then. So, well, good morning, I should say. Saying,
Good
well,
morning,
so.
Madonna. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Um, right, FTSE 100. Let's really, really quickly. We got,
Yeah, nice trade yesterday, mate. Well done.
yeah, good start to the week, right? And now I'm looking for a long. So I'm not looking for a longer term long, if you like, but I wouldn't mind. Now, the long's probably not going to get initiated until I bounce from here. So looking at 71.95, currently at 71.17. So I'm looking for about a 20 pip drop, and then I'm looking for support to acquire down here, and then buy up into the daily and monthly pivot. Now, the reason I'm not going for a longer term long is that I do think this market's under a bit of pressure. But the thing is, it's a tricky market, the FTSE, because on the whole, I quite like it when the FTSE 100 goes with the Nasdaq and the S&P and the DAC and the CAC. So we kind of get all all tides rising. Would that be the right expression, Jeff?
That'll do. Close
Yeah.
enough.
So all tides rising. That's what I really want to see. I want to see all of them rising and all of them falling. So in I was going to say tandem, but that would suggest two. So I'm going to say
Unison.
in unison. Beautiful.
There you go. It's almost
Yeah.
as good as Pro Rogue.
Yes, it is.
Not
Which
quite.
happened yesterday. Well, and actually back, but that actually leads me quite nicely onto why the FTSE's a different animal, because we keep seeing and keep hearing about the China US trade war actually sounding like they're making some sort of breakthrough, which has traditionally, if you like, if you can use that word. I know it's not that old, so. But certainly, sort of most recent pattern has been that the markets would flourish and actually start to gain off the back of some decent news and rhetoric from China and the United States. But the FTSE's been a different animal because of what's going on with the pound, which kind of brings us to this proroguing situation. So we've got a strong pound, which has resulted in a weak FTSE 100, and that hasn't helped. What I do think is quite interesting is the potential for stocks, and I know that this show isn't long enough really to kind of go into those kind of areas, but at some point, looking at FTSE 350 stocks is really the idea for anybody that wants to trade the pound without actually having to trade the pound, or wants to invest with the pound without having to actually invest with the pound, because you're not going to get your dividend payment. So I'm looking for a move to the downside and then a bounce to the upside. Profit probably will be taken off at daily and monthly pivot. So looking for something of around about a 65 pip move, which when you look at the average true range of the FTSE, it's around about that currently. So
I thought it might have been. Is that typical of the average range, or is it a little bit compressed at the moment?
well, let's bring it up because we'll see the kind of
Yeah, I don't
historic.
know. No idea.
It's from what I've witnessed, the FTSE is much has seems to have movement more commonly than it used to. What is my average true range? Don't use it often enough.
Indicators. Insert something next. I can't remember on that platform.
There we go. I got it. Indicate. It's actually just under indicators. So let's do it under 20 days. Change it to a daily chart. And what we got right now. Wow, look at that. So it's at 100. So the actual average true range, most when I've been looking at it, if we kind of like compress this in a little bit, then there are times that it gets up to these kind of, like, that's 169 up there. So there are times where it does start to fly. But I think generally speaking, you could say that the midpoint is, it looks like around about 80, the midpoint. So could be a little lower, but it's been pretty volatile recently, man. I have to say, you know,
very volatile. I mean, the difference, you know, like,
yeah,
where are you? Is that month to month?
that's day to day,
daily, right? Day to day.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, if we put, in fact, I can't put on month to month without it being, that's week to week. 2011 was a lot worse.
No wonder you can make some money out of it, mate. Wow.
This is the thing, you know, and this is what I obviously I really like about the FTSE. I don't see a problem with the FTSE 100 as a instrument to make money. You know, I don't see the issue. I know some people balk at the idea of trying to make money out of an indice, but I just don't get that. I really like it. I suppose, you know, partly because I understand it, but I don't see that there should ever be an issue with making money out of this. And I think the euro would be my, if I was looking at if I was looking at a currency, I'd certainly go with the euro. That would probably be the one of choice. In fact, the pound, and then the euro, because the pound would obviously be my local currency. So I'd go with the pound, and then I'd go with the euro.
Yeah, euro is my go-to.
Yeah, and I think it's a good one. I think the euro is a decent one. Just I suppose mainly because the euro is so liquid. It just ends up being, I can't say predictable, because that would make it sound like the euros are really
reliable,
easy.
I think is
reliable. That's a fair way to put it. So that's the FTSE anyway, mate. So I'm looking for a dip, and then I'm looking to buy into this area here, and then let's see what happens if we get up to that point. So we've already got money in the bank from yesterday, and that's that. Now let's move it on to you and move it on to the euro, because the euro I find really interesting, and I just want to give you my quick take on the euro before you give me your take, because I was looking at the euro yesterday in a little group that I've started for some Brightonians. Looking at some financial stuff. And my personal opinion of the euro is that until we get Thursday's announcement from Draghi and the central bank, I don't think this is going anywhere. So my personal thought is that there is a what shall I use? Let's use this. I think there is a selling opportunity here, and I think there is a buying opportunity here. Everything in between, I think, makes it a little bit tricky. This daily pivot doesn't help. But I think if price action comes up to this point, it's been proven. I would have gone higher, but having the monthly pivot here, it's been proven to be a decent area of resistance. So I'd be a seller at this area, which is what's that, around about 1.1066 or something. And I am a buyer at the weekly pivot around about 1.10. 20 or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but these are the 2 points that I'm buying and selling at until Thursday. And then after Thursday, what I'd want to see is whether it broke that way or whether it broke that way, and I would just want to be on board, because my personal thought on this is that it's Draghi's last announcement, last rate decision, to my knowledge, and I think that there is either something that he's going to do or nothing he's going to do. And if he does nothing, I think this really breaks down. And I think if he does something, it could go either way depending on what that something is. Which is much more likely to kind of if he does nothing, it's likely to pop up. If he does something, it's likely to pop down, but obviously depending on what that something is. But if he does something, it's likely to be some sort of stimulus package. Which could weaken the euro. So I think this one is the one of the week. But I think until we hit Thursday, I quite like the trade here, as I say, and the trade here. So anything that eases to the upside, I'll be sharpening my teeth, ready to bite some selling opportunities, and the opposite if it starts to move to the downside. Now, mate, I'm going to pass to you. Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly my analysis. And I think I've said it as much in any of the shows I've been in so far this week. And I'm ready, willing, and able to trade it not only as you've just described, but I need it to settle down right now because I'm trading it short against the pound. But that's exactly my analysis. And, it's a boundary that you're talking about. There's no reason for this to break out of this consolidation area until there is a fundamental announcement, which of course will be the Thursday statement from Draghi, providing they don't cut the interest rates just before, which they're not likely to do, of course. So absolutely, I'll be looking for a bounce off either the trade line or trend line here or the monthly pivot, and ditto, ditto, ditto. The one thing I would say is that if we are still in that range come Thursday, whatever time it is, I'll be looking to trade this as a breakout. So pursuant to what you've just said, I'll probably look for a tighter range than that. But if that's the range, then that's the range. I agree that it will break out. I don't know why. There's going to be, like you've just said, I don't know what that's likely to be. I have no idea whether it's going to go long or short. My preference is for short because, and I go back to the bigger picture, which last week showed me, not last week, the week before, showed me that this very, very strong channel has been absolutely busted. And that's significant as far as I'm concerned, because we haven't been able to break that for such a long time. Throw in 2 years, as it were. So I think that's a very significant break. We've had a retest of that. And at this point, we still haven't been able to come back above that broken bottom of what I call a range. Some people would laugh at me when I say that, but to me, that's a range, and I'm happy to call it that. So what I'll be looking for here is price to not go back into this area. And if I see it go back into that area, even on a daily chart, I'd be a little bit more reluctant to trade it short, but that breakout will be, and I'll trade it on a 4-hour chart, that breakout trade will almost certainly be short here, long here, just as you've described.
Yeah.
But there may be a better opportunity than that. So
yeah, I like what you're saying, actually. So actually, before we hit Thursday, that range may tighten a little bit further. Yeah.
Yep.
And then we might be
So
looking for it.
imagining something like, that's fairly defined right there. If we're, where are we? Monday, Tuesday, I'd be even prepared to tighten it into this area.
Where the daily pivot is.
There, yeah.
Yeah.
If price is anywhere near the middle of that, come, let's say, half an hour, 10 minutes before the announcement, then definitely I'll place a long in this vicinity, and definitely I'll place a short in this vicinity. Because I agree with you, this will be binary. It shouldn't be okay, let's go this way, then that. It should be very much a case of, okay, we get the message, and the message is, let's go this way, or we get the message, and the message is, let's go that way. So definitely on board with exactly what you're saying. My hope is that we do stay within that range, the current range, and that we do hang around the daily pivot. You can see that the daily pivot has flattened in the last 3 days. I'm hoping that remains the case, and we, come Thursday, are still in this position here, looking at that as the top and bottom of the range. So if that's the case, that's going to be a super trade, because the range is like 40 odd, not even. Look at that, 27 pips. If you can actually get the break of that, and of course I'll be risking more than that, because I'll be putting my entry well above the range and well below the range. So let's say I'm even risking 40 pips, or even double what the range is at 50 pips. This is going to go a lot further than 50 pips with with almost, I won't say certainly there's no such thing, but I would imagine that it's definitely going to go way longer than 50 pips, because it'll be a trendsetter, or whatever comes out of this, in my opinion. And it'll be exactly the same next week with FOMC. I'll be looking for this to consolidate next week as well. Whether it consolidates down here or up here, then who cares, as long as it does. And I think this is set up prime for both of those things to happen, because, as you say, Draghi's not going to go out without something. He'll definitely say something. And whether that's up here or down here, I don't care, as long as the trade sets up. So that's exactly what I'll be looking for. We're at resistance right now. We've just had a very bull candle. I'll be looking for that to turn around, maybe off the monthly pivot. So this will be tradable. If it does that, I'll go back to the smaller time frames. Same trade line really on the smaller time frames. It's a little bit different because it will really be up here, but it's a beautiful place to trade from. Absolutely glorious. If we get the resistance hit again and then come back below these, the confluence area, a little retest of that area really does smell of a bear move. So I'll be onto that one pretty quickly, if that were to be the case. And that's what I need to see. I can't just jump in here. It's not for me. I need to see this area break, a bit of consolidation at the monthly pivot, if you like, back underneath and retest it, then I'm short. So that's pretty much where I'm at, mate. And I think I'm in 100% full agreement with what you said.
Yeah, I like that. I like that trade. I quickly on the FTSE, I've got a feeling I was a bit ambitious. I don't think it's going to come as low as I wanted on the FTSE, and I've also got a feeling that maybe the opportunity has been missed, which we'll come to later on. I'm still a bull, but I'm not prepared to pay this price. So might well be an opportunity missed. I think I over. If it comes down again, in fact, do you mind if I quickly show you this, mate?
Go for it, mate. Go.
Where is my screen? Where are you? Let's see what I can find. Ah, there it is. Okay. So this is it's come down and it's bounced in. Now I had my line down here, which is below this this piece of price action here. But I actually think that this low probably was the area. And when I kind of, in fact, I'm just gonna take this away 1 second. If it comes down again, I'm in, basically, which I think it might. Actually, looking at that, I might just get one more opportunity. So I'm going to take that long, but let me just quickly bring this with a clean chart. So I picked out, well, let's call it 7,200. I said 71.95, but 7,200 would have been okay. But let's come down a little bit lower. Okay, so, and the reason for that is on the daily chart, it looks to me like this is the area of support. But when you look at this, when I look at this on a daily chart, the low of yesterday is just above where that is, so that kind of tucks me in there. And when I look at this high, it looks to me like let's have a look at the high of that bar. High of that bar is 72.03, so it is really probably slightly higher. Here we go. It is slightly higher than I wanted. So let me bring this to a 15 now. What I'm now going to do is, if this just comes down and touches this low again, I'm going to take the trade.
So is that worth setting a limit order, or you want to see the candle?
No, you're absolutely right. I could set the limit order. The question is, will I have time? Let's see if I can, because I would prefer that, because I've got another account I'd like to do the same thing on, and rather than have to manage it, that'd be good. So that's going to be, I'm about 3 pips away. So I'm going to do that exactly as Jeff says. I'm going to do a pending order, buy limit, and it's going to be at 72. 0.09, that's fine. Okay, let's see if we get it. We're about 2 pips away from that right now. You can see that there's the price on there, so might just about grab her in. There we go, we should be in. Right, so I've taken that trade. So now we are long, long, basically. So let me bring it back to.
They're very out of context head and shoulders sitting right there, isn't there?
Well, this one here.
No.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely is. And you know, the reason I've taken this trade is that the level, you know, might have been just slightly above where I first initially thought. But you know what I like about this, and you know, these are my entries really. This is a double top. This is a double bottom. You know, as it comes down here, and it took me a while to really establish how to trade. You know, not even how to trade, but what a double bottom kind of was. Because what I used to think was a double bottom is when, or what I used to regard a good enough double bottom, I suppose, is when the market came down, came back up, and then in this move here, it came down and bounced, and I'd take it there. But the reason that doesn't qualify for me is that this is part of the same move to the downside. You know, this is just a test, and then it might actually continue to come through. But what I want to see with a double bottom is a new phase. So it's the next, you know, in a different phase it comes down and tests. So that's where I would consider the double bottom. And the double bottom is one of my favorite entries, you know, and when I sort of like think about my favorite 2 entries, if you like, it would be the double bottom to double top, and the retest. And I do the same thing with a retest. I wouldn't be too worried about seeing a candle. Now, the way that I look at this, you're asking about whether I want to see the candle. What I'm interested in is price. But the good thing about this, if anybody's kind of like traded this as well, is if there's a few things that can happen here. Number one, we take off and we don't need to do anything, and we just kind of like look for our. Just want to make sure that is actually definitely in the market. Yeah. So yeah, so we want to make sure that is our level. So one of 2 things can happen. Now, the first thing that can happen, obviously, is that the price just takes off from here. Is that color good enough, Jeff? Can you see that? Okay.
Glorious, mate.
Yep. Okay, so that's the first thing that can happen. Now, the second thing that can happen is that we get, you know, this bar closing down here. Now, when that happens, that to me is kind of ominous, right? But as long as this level is right, and it is a level of decent support, and it wasn't because of the double bottom. The level is because of the price that I saw on the daily chart previously, and it's somewhere around about here, and it proved that it was here yesterday. So I was quite happy to take that. So if this happens, what I'm then trying to do is, because I got in on the line, I want to get out on the line. So as price comes back up again for a retest, which I always hope that it will do, then I want to close my trade down because I was wrong. So I can close my trade down at pretty much no loss. So any kind of retracement in here, I'm fine. Now, the next thing that can happen is that we get something like this. Price comes down, and then just before the hour's done, boom, it comes all the way back up again and gives me what would be an entry bar. Now, I'm already in at this point.
All the stops are gone.
And all the stops are gone, exactly. So this is why I'm not putting stops in. I'm not worrying about any of that, because failing an absolute disaster here and it tanking to the downside, which, you know, is going to take quite a bit of my money with it. You know, that scenario obviously can happen. But you know, as long as I don't get that, any one of the other things that can happen is okay for me. Because even if we get this and we get the close, and then you know, while I try and get out here, the retest doesn't happen, but we come down again, then I can start thinking, okay, look, it's starting to really break down. Let's just get out. So this whole area here becomes like an area that effectively I've got a mental stop, if you like, a manual stop. You know, that's what my manual stop area. Now, the reason that I'm not too concerned that I will miss putting my stop in place and it just tanks is because of this. Where are you? Is because of this. Average earnings out at 930. New loans from China, crude oil, nothing really there. Here we go. Monetary policy statement. ECB press conference. So all this stuff is ahead, right? So this is the reason that it would be unusual. Could happen, but it'd be unusual for the market to really move before we get this, and maybe even before we get some of the resale sales from the United States, but even before we get Jerome Powell and Mark Carney next week with the rate decision. So that's why I'm not too worried. They're the things that are much more likely to give me a real, a knee-jerk move. And anything else will be, for want of a better term, it'd be an act of God. It'd be something that is unforeseen. Maybe it's a tweet from Donald Trump. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But it's unlikely to drag it through a strong support level, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Because so what I'm interested in is price. And then after I've got my price, if I can get in at that price, then I want to see if the chart develops my way. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I shouldn't be at too much risk. If it does, then great. I've got in at a nice early level, and everybody else can jump on board and allow me to actually make the trade safer, because I can put stops at break even as soon as this starts going up a lot earlier than anybody else can. So even though it seems like a pretty dangerous way to trade, the way I see it, for my particular stance and style, I find it a lot safer.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm in the other camp that waits for the confirmation.
Yes.
Nothing's wrong, and that's the cool part. Both are right if they continuously put up winning trades, and that's all that counts.
Exactly. I mean, the key for me is I have to be fairly comfortable that I've picked the right price, because the truth is that I will trade the other way where I wait for confirmation, because if I'm not quite sure if I've got the right level, then I can't trade it. So I've got to be fairly comfortable that I've got the right price. Because if I'm a little bit high and it moves to the downside, closes, and I start to panic and close it off, but actually find out that the lower level was the area that it was going to bounce from, then I've just I've done my money, So I've that's the thing about here. We've had it tested once before. We actually got a little test a little while ago as well. Okay, so it's coming down now, but let's see what happens here, and I'll see what I'm going to do. I think I've got around about a 10 pip range anyway that I can comfortably wait for. So that is that, mate, and we can now move back to looking at other things. I don't know whether you're looking at the pound today.
Yeah, I'll have a quick look at the other two majors, the pound and the Aussie.
Great.
And we'll probably wrap it up there.
Great.
I best go to the trade. I'm on the wrong side of it at the moment, and it is euro pound short. And the reason I'm short euro pound is based very much on relative strength. Now, it's a super risky trade, as I said this morning when I placed this in the Slingshot group. Why can't I see the controls here? I don't know why. Not that it really matters a whole lot, I suppose. As long as you can see my screen, I guess everything's okay.
Let's have a look. Yeah, we can see your screen. You should be able to see the controls somewhere around.
Oh, they go up the top, don't they?
Yeah, or down the bottom.
What happens.
Yeah.
No, they go up the top when you start to share. So now I'm in control. Well, kind of, if you know what I mean. So euro pound, I've traded this on the daily chart, but I've largely chosen to ignore this candle. And I really want to ask you, Ash, what happened in Parliament yesterday? And I know we've now printed a law that says we can't exit without, so there's no such thing as a no deal Brexit, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What that actually, and how that's actually going to pan out, and what it means. And I know what it means, but is it actionable? Is it a thing that?
Oh yeah, it's in law now. So because it's in law, it means that Boris Johnson has to abide by it, and if he doesn't, then he's going to be in contempt. So you know,
but in fact, doesn't that depend on the way Parliament votes, or the way the Eurozone accepts, or
yeah, absolutely.
Or says, okay, you can have another deal.
I mean, the permutations are still quite numerous. I mean, we got Parliament shut down yesterday, so the proroguing started yesterday. Was the first thing, and John Bercow, the Speaker, also announced that he was going to resign as the Speaker, which is huge. And the Conservatives were effectively trying to get him out anyway. And the Speaker is impartial, but he still has a seat. So because he has a seat, he still runs for election. And it is tradition that you don't put anybody up against the seat of the Speaker. So the Speaker's seat is pretty much secure. When you become the Speaker, you become pretty much the most powerful guy in the room. Because you can't get dislodged. But the Tories were talking about putting somebody up against him, which is to say, it's a something which is completely against convention. Because even though he was a Tory, they believe that he is pretty much stopping the Tories trying to get through what they need to get through. So that was massive. So he decided he's going to resign, but he's not going to resign until the 31st of October. So he's going to be able to cause a little bit of havoc for the Tories and particularly the Boris Johnson style Brexit Tories up until Brexit actually happens. There were also votes that Boris Johnson brought through to try and get that election, and that was voted against. There were also votes that forced Boris Johnson to disclose the Brexit impact. So they've got I think it's called Yellowhammer, but it's the full report about what's going to happen with a no deal Brexit, and they've got to publish that report. So there's no holding that back. And they
you
also
mean what they think will happen, or
yes. What the government, what advice the government has been given that they haven't told the public. About the no deal Brexit, and also they
takes into a lot. I mean, that's a lot of speculation at the end of the day.
It absolutely is
based on, of course, sound facts. I'm sure, but do we really know how the world and the markets will react?
No, we don't. I suppose what they are trying to prove is that Boris Johnson and the government have been lying because they haven't disclosed the potential Armageddon in the way that it really could unfold, because they've been saying everything's fine when it's not. Now, the last thing that's I think it was the last thing they have also passed through is for Boris Johnson to disclose the texts between him and Dominic Cummings in relation to prorogue in Parliament, because the prorogue in Parliament was meant to be completely normal. They've got the party conferences coming up, and it's quite regular for them to end the session before the party conferences. So with the party conferences kind of closing up, the closing down of Parliament would have happened, but not this early. So what MPs have now put into law is that he has to disclose the texts that he exchanged with Dominic Cummings in regards to this, to show whether Dominic Cummings and him have been doing this underhand, and it wasn't just a kind of normal procedure that they were going through, but showing that it was a Brexit related shutdown of Parliament. So, so there's quite a few things that Boris Johnson lost, and and that all had permutations for the pound.
And yesterday's candle is very much a depiction of that.
Absolutely right.
But I've chosen to ignore it. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. We'll see how that all pans out. I've taken a small risk trade to the downside based on what happened before this candle, not as a result of that candle. So
have you sold the euro pound or bought
I've
it?
sold euro pound. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then that's okay, isn't it?
Well, at the moment it's on the wrong side of that, but
yeah.
And I've got a pretty tight stop loss, so I was thinking, okay, it's either going to go or it's not. And at this point in time, I still think it'll go, but judging what all of yesterday meant in terms of the pound is a very, very difficult thing for me to do.
It absolutely is. I mean, because of how you are thinking about the euro dollar, does that mean that you potentially won't trade the euro dollar if you still have this trade on the table on Thursday?
Oh no!
Because if this is in the money enough, don't you just ride it and see if the euro does weaken? Because if it weakens across the board, this is going to be a fantastic trade, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, that won't affect me at all. I mean, this is a completely different trade to euro dollar. There's no question about that. This is all about relative strength. And over the last month or so, the pound's been far stronger than the euro. And if you run a line across both of those currencies versus the dollar, you can see that the pound has rallied in 1, 2, 3, 4, well, counting this week, of the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
If you look at the euro on the weekly chart, you won't see that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, the relative strength and the fact that, as you say, I'm extremely bearish the euro at the moment because of this bar here. Yes, we're looking at retracement. Fully expect retracement after something like that. But I don't expect this to go back inside this range, as I've said. And for that reason, the relative strength says to me I have to be trading euro pound short. Of course, that is risky, super risky, because of the fact that the pound is in such a turmoil. It could go either way and very, very substantially either way in a heartbeat. That's why this is a very, very low stake trade. But really what it's based on is the fact that and this is a very loose neckline that I'm trading here as well, I've got to say. But
well, do you know what? I think you're right. And when I look at that, what I see is a neckline that's probably more likely to have started around the 18th of June, rather than where that is. Which
here.
Yes. Yeah. If you draw a line there, where does that leave the yeah, from that one? Yeah, see that suggests to me that that's the neckline.
And that's not yet broken.
And that's not yet broken, which means the pop-up would potentially go to around about the weekly pivot, would be the top of the right shoulder, in my opinion, and not a bad place to try and pick it up.
Yep. And if that's the case, then I'll do exactly that again. But this candle here kind of did that. And that's why it's very hard to read, because I had to really kind of think, okay, I'll ignore that candle, let this go. And if it does pop up, then we'll get back into it a second time. So, as I say, it was a high-risk trade, and we'll see how it pans out. But that's the only trade I'm in at the moment. What I'm looking for, as we try and wrap this show up pretty much, I want to trade the Aussie short against the yen probably, but we seem to be in a risk-on scenario. And for whatever reason, I don't really know why we're in a risk-on scenario. But this has got to run out of puffs shortly, in my humble opinion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 daily bars that have been very, very strong. And as I said, into last week, we had some very, very good news that drove this, apart from the fact that the dollar weakened and we went risk on, which brings the yen off, of course. So I'm very much a fan of looking for a short here where is probably just a little bit beyond where we're at the moment. So I'll be looking at the 74 mark, which is round about there-ish. So probably a little bit left yet, and then I'll start looking for that. If I can find a confluence, which is probably going to be here, that kind of looks okay to me. So if we can get above this area, find that 74 mark, back underneath it, there's another confluence area here. Back below that, retest that area. I think that's the place I'll be looking to short Aussie yen, and everything will be very, very similar. Aussie CAD's the same. I think oil is likely to go a little bit higher based on the charts that I've been looking at anyway. There is the oil chart broken through resistance, and maybe a little bit of pullback here today, and then off she goes, perhaps. I mean, that's speculation on my behalf, but that's what it looks like to me. We've got double bottom here, higher low, now a higher high, another higher low sitting here. I think that's probably a bullish sign, and that should therefore drag the CAD with it and the Aussie CAD down, in my humble opinion. So what I'm looking for here with this massive now rejection of this level, we look to be there again. I'll be looking for price to, I don't know where it's got to get to, maybe down to the weekly pivot, then bounce off that, give me a lower high in this area. And if that's the case, I'll be shorting Aussie CAD. But that's pretty much where I'm at, mates. Euro pound is an interesting one, as I said. I don't really want to trade the pound against the dollar. I don't really want to trade the euro against the dollar at the moment, but I'll wait until I get a signal off euro dollar that this is going to bounce off this level. And if I do see that, then I will be short euro dollar as well.
Yeah. Cool.
That's where I'm at.
Okay. Just a quick question in the box from Lewis. So let me deal with that. Hey, buddy. First of all, as the WPR and RSI is heading down, why am I looking to buy the FTSE now? Okay. So it's... I suppose the first thing that I should say is that indicators will come second for me. They're the second thing that I look at. I'm not interested in an indicator until it would back up, I suppose, what I'm already thinking. So don't get me wrong. This not that this trade isn't a little bit more risky. Because there aren't any indicators in line. There's not even a bar. I didn't even trade a bar. So yes, it's a much more risky entry. But the reason I'm looking for upside is more to do with sentiment, which is much more important in my opinion. So firstly, this is an uptrend. This is a higher high, and all I'm trying to do is find out where that higher low is. So I'm playing the trend. Of course, this could break to the downside and maybe keep going. If I wait for the indicator to catch up, it's going to be probably up. Price is going to be up here by the time the indicator's decided to show me that I should have been going long. So I'm just trying to trade the level that it could retest. And you know, if we think about breakouts and pullbacks or breakouts and retests, then all I'm doing is trying to trade the retest on a longer term time frame. That's the kind of first point of call. It's broken out, come back. Trade the retest and see if we can get something more significant, or at least if I can get to that week monthly pivot and take profit. If it breaks through the monthly pivot, then I can go again. So I just see this as an area that the market has got a possibility to bounce from. Now, the other aspect of this is that, as I said, you know, this Draghi is due to come out on Thursday, and
I think we're still on my screen, mate.
Oh, well, sorry, buddy. All right. There we go. So FTSE 100 is a break and a retest. So I'm looking. This is a daily chart. Market came to the downside, found a bottom, resistance, bang through resistance, creating a higher high. Now this is the higher low potentially. So I'm just trying to find the higher low. If I can find it here, then I've got a perfect place for a trade. I'll put my stops at break even and either ride the wave or take the trade off around about the monthly pivot and go again if it breaks through. So I'm just trying to find that particular point and just sticking with market structure. You know, the structure's upside, the structure's a trend. So I'm just trying to find where that structural point is, and the evidence suggests it's here. When I looked at yesterday's price action, this here suggested that there was a point here that it could bounce from. It may still fail. I haven't taken it off because I want to see the. I did say that if it breaks down and comes up, I come out, but I don't on a 15-minute. I want this to see what it looks like on an hourly. This is just to illustrate the bounce point. So it bounced here. So double bottom suggests that there are people that are willing to buy here. So that's suggesting that why not? Why not give this a punt? Is my first thing. So I'm taking a punt to the upside from that. Now the overarching thing for me is the why. Why would it break down? Why is the trend about to change to the downside? And I haven't got a reason, because when I go through the list of direction, I go trade war with China and America, rhetoric positive. Mario Draghi doesn't speak till Thursday. Jerome Powell doesn't speak till Wednesday. Mark Carney, I think it's Thursday, but it might be Friday, but it's next week. So I've got all these things there saying unlikely to break down. There's no reason for it to break down. So because there's no reason for it to break down, then the trend should continue. That, you know, what's happened before should continue. There should be enough confidence out there. The pound does put things in a problematic area, but most of the news from the pound that drove the FTSE down was yesterday. So I'm just looking to see, you know, now Parliament's off. Now I don't think there's anything else that's on the horizon which is going to take it down. So I'm quite comfortable looking for upside. And if I'm comfortable looking for upside, I want the best price. And from what I can see, this is the best price on offer. And it's as simple as that. Does that make sense, Lewis?
I think the over, as I missed a little bit of that, and then maybe you said it, but I think for me the overriding thing is you're going to use the RSIs and the WPRs as confirmation rather than as a leading guide.
Exactly that, mate. Yeah, exactly that. And I know it's a little bit, I guess, unconventional, which is maybe what we should call this show, because we're probably sort of the most unconventional traders in the company. But and I know it's a bit unconventional because it's not a strategy, but I don't have a strategy. I just have an approach, and I have an opinion, and you know, it serves me well enough to stay with this particular way of looking at and trading the market. Great. Well, I hope it goes well then, mate. Well, I mean, so far so good. We're in the money, right? You should be 5 pips to the good right now. So let's ride it up. Now, the good thing about it is that if it does kind of close nice and high, closes up here somewhere, then just put the stops at break even. You can get them there nice and early with a trade like this. That's what I like about it. Now, the other thing to consider is that, you know, the market didn't have any momentum coming down to this point. So, you know, with a lack of momentum, it again suggests that there's going to be a lack of velocity that's going to take us through. So if there's with that lack of velocity, then it's much more likely to hold and bounce than come through. So yeah, that's that. I'm glad you're in, mate, and let's hope that you know, we both make some money out of it, and we come back tomorrow to discuss what we're going to do with our money. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, mate. Well, that's us, right?
We're done, mate. We'll do it again tomorrow, though, I think.
Yeah, I think we will. Good luck with that, Lewis, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same trade time, same trade channel, when we will do something that Jeff coined but can't remember.
it ends in, I think it ends in mate. No, it ends in date.
Oh, was it something? Maybe it's something to do with 8. We'll be back at 5 to 8.
Ah, yes.
Is what it
and
is.
that's a date.
I think it was a bit more. I'm sure it was a bit more classy than that.
Wasn't far away though.
But yeah, not far away. Yeah, but maybe a bit more refined. Okay, guys. Well, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, 5 to 8, and that will be a date. Same trade time, same trade channel.
See you guys.
All right, and see you tomorrow as well, buddy. Have a good evening and enjoy wine o'clock.
We have to have a chat.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. I'm hopping out, hopping back in. Actually,
Right now, I'll be 2 minutes. I've just got to duck downstairs.
All right, buddy. I'll go and get a brew, and I'll meet you on Skype.
Happy days.
All right, see you guys. All right, see you soon, Lewis.